Aloha Nui. My name is Ben. I live in South Kona, right? I'm just deciding it's late, but we have the fire in LA, and it's possible there's some people who will be interested in watching me say something. I was actually going to do a piece, sort of related, curiously. We'll touch on that in just a second. All right, get the basic logistics out of the way. I'm asserting my copyright to my material. Obviously, I'm giving permission to YouTube on my channel, as long as I want it on my channel, to make my content available. But it's my channel. All right, I think that's all clear. It says copyright 2025, Benjamin Lipman, all rights reserved, no permission to copy, modify, or otherwise distribute audio, images, video, or other content without explicit permission, and I absolutely do not want AI to touch my material at all. Thank you very much. Mahalo. Okay. So that's that. Aloha keakua. We acknowledge and have reverence for the divine in all its manifestations and forms, which includes the soul of every creature and every human being on earth. Aloha aina. We, with enormous gratitude, stand on this precious earth, every square inch of it, and revere it and love it and cherish it. Amene. Malama pono. Let's take care of making things right and in balance, and have aloha for the divine and everything on earth, from God all the way to rocks. Out here, we revere the rocks because they relate, well, they are the body of our local volcano, which for the indigenous people here is kind of a big deal. God has many forms. All right, so I did a little introduction, and that should be available. So in the second installment, and it's right around midnight, and in Vedic science, the day rolls into the night. So it's the 8th of December. I'm calling it that. It is, yes or no, not in LA anymore, but so the Chinese character for crisis is a combination of danger and opportunity. And at this moment in time on planet Earth, mostly, entirely, perhaps, let's see, on my list, it's entirely related to human activity. There are maybe 10 top crises, but I think there's 12 or more. I made a list of, I think, about 12 here. Critical crises that we must meet somehow. The writing's on the wall. If we don't turn things around in some of this stuff, life won't be the same for future generations. And we have a duty of care for our world and the future, simply put. So it's about love for others. Some people seem to have trouble with that. I don't understand it. I'm very confused. I think some people are confused. But so here's the list. Nuclear fission and fusion. Obviously, fission produces waste products that ruin part of the world or degrade it. And in my humble opinion, that technology is fraught with danger to the point where if we had to pay for what we get out of it, it actually doesn't pay for itself. If we look at the cradle to grave cost and actually tried to reverse the second law of thermodynamics and bring all the pollution back out, which we can't. But if we tried to, we couldn't afford to do it. Just that simple. So if people are playing with fission, they're basically writing off the future. They're writing off part of the world that's going to be destroyed. Fusion, enormous promise for energy, if we get it right. But then we've got the hydrogen bomb. And we've got way too many of those. We've got enough to ruin, basically break the planet into little bitty bits, I think, and certainly ruin life on Earth. That's threat number one, is stupidity at that level. Putin actually threatened to use nuclear weapons, okay? And threatening to use something, if you have it, is in fact actually using it. That's kind of like a red line that was crossed, I feel. We can't have that. That's just not acceptable human behavior. Now, our best prospect for energy other than solar, which is excellent. We've got this fusion reactor 11 minutes away, perfectly placed. And that drives wind, obviously direct radiation from the sun is our solar panels. All the plants, biofuels, ethanol, that's all the sun. So we're using that. And that relates to this other concept called the Kardashev scale, which I'll get to in just a second. Brilliant idea. And it has to do with scale of civilization, right? Because people are interested in getting beyond the Earth, and I'm sure eventually we will. But we have to deal with these crises that are here now. And how, right? How do we? This is what today is about. So geothermal is probably our best prospect for additional energy. It's free, cheap, relatively. It will be uses the technology of the oil and gas industry more or less. We are really smart people who know how to drill. Let's drill for energy, but let's drill for geothermal energy, which is safe and doesn't ruin our atmosphere. Long term, we could cool the Earth. We would. And so basically, geothermal might be good for 10,000 years or 100,000 years, but at some point we have to do something else. But right now, I think that's our best bet for an additional energy supply, not nuclear. Because I care about the world, I care about the Earth, I care about the genetic inheritance that we have, that God gave us, that evolution gave us. And I just think nuclear fission in particular is too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. It's not the right technology for us. Okay. Biotechnology, modifying species. In Hawaii, we have wave after wave of invasive plants and insects and even animals. And they cause enormous trouble. And so messing with the genome, I think that's a Pandora's box that we want to be very, very careful with. Now, what's going on is conflict. I'm seeing cyber conflict. I'm seeing smuggling of, we just had a big explosion in Honolulu of fireworks, illegally smuggled fireworks, and I think the local officials are really worried about, okay, what other gunpowder, large mortar shell, whatever they said that. What's going on? It appears that we could have had something like a civil war. I think Russia wanted that in the U.S. Just more chaos, but violence. What I'm seeing on the internet is basically violence. It's suppression, control, damage. Major medical systems are being damaged. Our radiology office here, our one company that really does good imaging in Kona, they're shut down because of cyber attack. Ransomware, I don't know, whichever, but that's fighting, that's conflict. And if people are using biotechnology as conflict, and some people think Lyme disease may be something like that, that's not good, because we could end up creating things that we really don't want on Earth, but might get out of control. And we have epidemics. We had COVID. There's worry about bird flu. There's the Lyme disease. Nature's going to create. We're just a big petri dish anyway for nature. So messing with that more, probably not a great plan. The exception may be very careful use, like the cancer remedies. But we have to we have to find a way to manage what we're doing in society in a way that is responsible, that respects everything, all future. And think about it. If we're just I think we're at the very beginning. We're at a very primitive stage in the human story. But here we are. We're basically monkeys. And we're pretty primitive. I mean, just see the news. And I don't use social media, but I've heard enough. People aren't being civilized. They're not being respectful. Aloha keakua, aloha aina, malama pono. Amen. That's all you need to know. It's really all you need to know. That's it right there. Okay, so we've got information, cyber, robots, wherever that might go. Obviously AI is in there, and the possibility of creating a singularity that has control over every electronic device, more or less, and is malicious. And we go right into that story, what is it, The Matrix, right? Where the best use of a human being is just to be a battery for the machine. It totally could happen. It may already be happening. I don't know. We might have multiple singularities already. And I mean, whatever's going on, there's either extreme malice by human beings or there's something else. But AI is involved, and it's taking the whole cyber thing that was an issue years ago up to a whole other level. And any audio, any video, if it's on the internet, you don't know. Could be anything. Then we've got surveillance. So electronics, Chinese electronics at this point, I think, are suspect. But basically, we've got space-based surveillance that apparently can do facial recognition on a clear day, all the way from space. Never mind, in a ship that's out there, or somebody who just has an apartment next to you or whatever. So audio surveillance, video surveillance, the communication surveillance, the big tech companies they've been caught basically violating people's privacy in all sorts of ways. The TikTok thing is about to explode, I think. What I read is shocking and offensive. I've seen strange things with cars, the way people drive. So each of these, I'm going to go into more detail, maybe by here. We see there's 5G, I believe, can be used as a crowd control device. There was an article many years ago where the permissions, the licensing in U.S. and Canada was different than Europe. Hard to believe, but I think it's an issue. Obviously, global warming, huge crisis, right? So now we're thinking, we're not going to do 1.5. If we're lucky, we'll stop at 2 degrees. And this is where the fires in LA are really warning us. The chaparral, the drought. We're having a drought here in Kona, and so I've been doing a lot of fire mitigation myself. And it's entirely this year. We had all this rain, unusually wet summer, and then very, very dry. And that just creates the tinder for fires. And this changing climate is going to set the stage for forest fire, like we've never seen before, I think. And I think this LA. I mean, what the fireworks thing is, whatever that is. But we had Lahaina here in Hawaii. That was, I think, 1,000 buildings. They don't even know how many people died because a lot of the homeless people were uncounted, apparently. But we had at least 100 deaths. The miracle in LA, they're saying 5 people. 2,000 buildings, 5 fires. We're going to hear more, obviously. How did they start? 5 fires with the high winds. So in global warming, I'm going to describe that as atmospheric pollution as a general category, because I think we're going to have that as a general category. Then there's general environmental pollution, right? We've got plastic contamination, the forever chemicals, the pesticides. And those are all serious. They damage, just a little bit of certain chemicals can damage the hormonal system of an entire population of fish, for instance. We don't even know all of what can be done with some of these chemicals in terms of the damage they can do. On the farm here, I'm endeavoring as much as possible, and it's pretty much as across the board. Maybe the exception proves the rule. Every few years, I'll need to use some poison somewhere, somehow. But basically, I'm really striving to not use any poisons. And there's huge benefits to that. I can eat any plant that's edible right there without worrying about it. There might be some parasites I have to address or whatever, right? But basically, if I wash food or drop it on the floor, I don't have to worry. Okay, loss of biodiversity. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's number 8. Huge problem. Loss of habitat, losing our biological inheritance. And what we're finding, they're still finding things they never knew existed. And there's medicine, there's learning. Some of these creatures evolve ways of doing things that then inspire new technologies. And just the beauty and the grace of having life on Earth the way it was given to us. It's not ours, but we are in a custodial role, collectively. And a lot of people think, oh, I can go in the rainforest and own the rights to this or that, or I don't think so. I feel like we're all indigenous. This is our planet, collectively ours. Only it's our home. We don't own it. We just happen to be born at this time with everything that's here. So we're at this very interesting time where there's all these technologies, all these crises, the ability, if this works out, for me to somehow be on the global internet with a little camera. Amazing. But we're really in danger of losing so much, and the future generations. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's ideas about bringing stuff back, but if you look at one creature, it's not just the creature and the genetics of the creature, it's the entire biome inside the creature, which is thousands of different organisms and blah, blah. If that creature goes away, even if you find a scrap of DNA, you may not be able to make it. And then, of course, there's the genetic pool of the species. I think we're about to lose our right whales. The extinctions are off the charts, and we're the cause. the Anthropocene. That's what we're in. Number 9. So invasive species and new pathogens, right? Because nature invents things and modifies things. And COVID, for example. If COVID had been one notch more deadly, we could have lost half of humanity on this planet. We'd have a very different conversation now. We'd still be burying the dead, probably. Could have happened. Delta was frightening. It was killing a lot of people. What we have now, yeah, but Delta was different. And there's this evolution of the pathogen, so science of that. I've been worried about epidemic for some time. I think COVID was a wake-up call. I don't think that was the real deal yet. But any moment, yeah, it sort of taught us how to think about epidemiology in a new way, global. All right, 10 on my list, so top 10, is fascism / authoritarianism, essentially anti-freedom, anti-life organization of human beings. And that's kind of something I want to talk about. So 11 and 12, overpopulation, a tired subject, but too many people on Earth, we're going to degrade our habitat. And biology does this all the time. Population overshoots, crash. We probably have more human beings than we really need on Earth right now, and we need to talk about that. Everybody gets to stay, hopefully, but I'm not sure we need twice as many people or whatever the number is. Now we can do a lot less damage if we stop eating animals. Huge impact. Climate change impact. Never mind the horrors of what is being done to animals in these farms. It's just awful. I do eat some eggs. I do eat some fish. I'm trying to curtail that as much as I can. And we all have to make our choices and be healthy. Number 12 is psychological. And I think the LA, people are already talking about this in LA, that the impact is enormous psychologically. And that's why I'm going to try to get this out. So we need to hold the hearts of the people in Los Angeles right now, because they're, I'm sure, frightened, overwhelmed, upset, wondering. But LA was built in a desert. It doesn't really have its own water, in a dry place. So that's a city that was always sort of on the precipice in this way. We need to think about the future, about where we build, how we build, what we build, how we treat people. There's going to be bigger storms. There's going to be stronger winds. There's going to be a lot of displacement. So already 2,000 buildings, probably and counting, in LA. That's a lot of housing that's now gone. Right? Where are those people going to go? You can't build a house in a week. Yeah, tomorrow they're going to start talking about that. Okay, what happens? And should we build more in LA? What should the building codes be? How much water do we have? There's a water pressure problem. There is not enough water really to sustain LA, Phoenix, But there's a building boom in Phoenix. Why? Because there's a misunderstanding about what the resources are, and I think who's making the decisions, right? So that's my list of 12, and I don't know, maybe I'll get the list down somewhere, but so crises, right? Planetary crisis of crises. It's a crisis of crises. There's war. Citizens, civilians are being murdered right now on a scale that really we haven't seen since World War II. What happened in Syria is just deeply disturbing. How did that happen? How did we not prevent that? It's upsetting. Anyway, so benchmarks for civilization. Let's talk about that, because I think people need a look toward a positive future. Like, what is our potential? So the Kardashev scale. This is a Russian astrophysicist who thought about looking at civilization beyond Earth and how would we measure that? What would we look for? And the idea is to look at the total energy consumption of a given civilization. And a stage 1 civilization is using all of the solar energy that reaches its planet. Okay, and it's being used by the civilization. Now, if we're elves and we're protecting our forests, our beautiful, like Amazon forest, is that using the energy that reaches the planet? I would argue maybe. That's not how Kardashev was thinking about it. He was thinking like cover the Earth in solar panels or the equivalent, put them up in space, that much energy, and then look for an energy signature output from a civilization with a telescope. That's how he's thinking about it. This was a long time ago. I have this aphorism: we have to choose whether we're going to be elves or we're going to be cyborgs on a concrete world. Are we going to be elves protecting our forest, or the cyborgs? And there's been some thought about that, right, in media land. I love the living earth. I love the natural beauty. I love the people. I actually love all the people, all the animals, all the rocks, everything. Because I can. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And possible. But it involves having an open heart, right? So at this time, I mean, you might say, what would Jesus do? Jesus would say, love. Love everybody. Love everything. And the ones who need this love the most, go to them. Right? That's what Buddha did. Jesus did. One of Buddha's disciples was a murderer who then became enlightened. Possible. So, Kardashev 1, planet. Kardashev 2, the entire output of the sun is used by the civilization. And that is, there's a brilliant physicist named Dyson who actually should have gotten the Nobel Prize for physics for what he did. But the sort of slightly leftward physicists they didn't do well in that time. So be it. That's history now. But a Dyson sphere captures all the energy of the sun. And there's some interesting science fiction about that maybe I'll remember to share about. Has some thoughts about dark energy. By the way, I wrote a physics book. Kind of have a new idea about what dark energy is and what dark matter is. And the book scratches the surface, kind of opens the door. It isn't quite right on the dark energy. I need to rewrite it, but it's basically in there. Type 3 civilization is using the entire energy of its galaxy. Think about that. That a civilization has actually traveled to every star and is using the output of every star, or the equivalent level of energy, however it's created, right? It could be some mystic energy source tapping the big black hole in the center of the galaxy, something like that. So yeah, there's enormous gravitational energy that we're actually in. It's the biggest thing going, and our star is flying through space-time so fast because of this gravitational vortex, but we don't. Even the astrologers don't really consider it, but it relates to my root guru actually, and to me. So it's a big deal. And so galactic consciousness, that's what we're talking about. So that means other star systems somehow are part of our community as well. Thinking about that. So to go from here to, is it Alpha Centauri that's 4 light years away? I don't, 4.2, maybe that's right. I'm guessing of it. But that's as long as it takes for an electromagnetic signal to travel to another star, like for us to get radio data or but that means they've been getting I Love Lucy for a long time, right? Famously. So that's sort of intriguing. And there are indigenous cultures that have ideas about civilizations in different star systems. And there might be something to that, because the Kardashev scale is dealing with the material realm, the energy output, right? So that's, in the introduction, I talk about the axes. The horizontal axis is the 5-element reality, energy, matter, space-time even. There's a vertical axis. So I would label the horizontal axis the X, Y, Z. And the vertical axis, ABC. And that has to do with spiritual science. It has to do with personal evolution. So children grow up, they start out really selfish, right? They have their own needs, they cry, they want help. And then they go through the teenage time and the hormones kick in, and most of us learn to be good, loving adults. And parenting is really important in that, right? And then in the spiritual path, having opportunity, and we have enormous opportunity. If you go, now YouTube is really just a mess of junk. Most of it's junk. But if you filter YouTube for quality spiritual teaching, sometimes that's hard because there's a lot of charlatanism out there, but if you look for the authentic teachers, you can feel it. And maybe someday I'll like share my favorites or look and make a list of things I personally think are worthwhile, worth your precious time. Right? Nothing is more precious than the moments we have. We don't know how many we get. And we're wise to be spending as much time as we can steeped in divinity. Finding a community of people, a church or a temple or a drumming circle or an ayahuasca group, I don't care. A group of people who are all committed to their personal growth. For many years I was involved in the intentional communities movement here and worldwide, actually. It is worldwide. And these are people who gather, and one of for most of them, one of the foundations is that everybody is committed to their personal growth as a fundamental. A good marriage, two people come together and they're committed to helping each other become better people. And calling each other on their shit and being with each other, and then raising children that are good people, contributing members of society that are going to make the world a better place. It's a basic human thing, actually. It's just that we're in a time now where a lot of people are facing this frightening list of crises. And then there's a lot of disinformation, and there are people who are actually trying to confuse people, trying to make people do evil things, legitimizing piracy and stealing and lying and destructive things. But that's just not, that's not the way. So yes, we live in the horizontal, right? We have to eat, shit, sleep, everyone, right? And we have basic needs. But if we took the resources we have on this earth right now, every single human being would have so much more than their basic needs. And I put education and freedom and medical care, obviously, loving environment, shelter, all of it. With these crises, we're going to have a refugee crisis, right? There's this deportation talk in the United States. Well, what about these people who have fled an intolerable life where they were? What happens? What would Jesus do? And I think maybe I'll try to do a piece on that. But I think we need to find a way to make a way for all of these people to have their basic needs. And then, okay, they may not be United States citizens. Let's create a real path for the best people. Maybe they have to earn it somehow or prove it or whatever to come in, because we actually need these people working here. That's going to come up. People are already writing about it. They've been at it for some time. And I mean, these are people who are quite happy to do the jobs that a lot of other people don't want to do. They just want a shot at a decent life. Can you blame them for that? If we have all these resources, do we not have some duty, malama pono, to be generous? It doesn't have to be, weird. There's some extreme stuff on the left that is too much and it disturbs people. No, I'm just talking about basic Christian charity. Yeah, and let's not indoctrinate them either. Like, that's a problem with the Christ Church, like the book, and that, no. Offer teachings, of course. But forcing people to, that's not freedom. I'm pro-freedom. I'm pro-individual sovereignty and pro-national sovereignty. Pick your national identity. I don't care. And then there's going to be the governance that is required to make everything work. And we do. We have an amazing constitution. There's been a lot of misuse of the legal process. And I think we have some judges who have been bent into some wrong thinking. The Justice Department has become political. It shouldn't be. It's not the right use of the courts. The courts are here to protect human rights and our Constitution. All right. So, ABC axis. Here's my idea. Call it the Lipman scale. Little a, little b, little c, or big A, big B, big C. So little a You're on a planet, and as the Buddha said, one day all the human beings on Earth will be at least, let's say, stage 1 enlightened. They all, or even let's just say what I call self-realized. Stage 1, unconditional love. All the human beings on Earth actually live in a state of unconditional love. That means they are in the field of Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, don't care what you call it. They're with Great Spirit, whatever you call it, right? A lot of people are already there. Fairly accessible, actually. And life is fantastic in that place. Because your mind doesn't trouble you. You're not feeling fear in the primitive way. You're connected. And then you meet other people who are like that, and there's just joy together. So that would be, let's say that's big A. The whole planet. All people in this field of unconditional love. Totally achievable. B would be our solar system, I guess. The day that we're colonizing and everybody is in unconditional love, or other higher states of enlightenment. I don't want to put a scale, but there really is this spiritual evolution. There is this vertical axis from rocks and monkeys. Well, even monkeys, actually. Bonobos are probably better than we are at sharing. Frankly, look it up. So somewhere here, matter, energy, rocks. Up here, the overarching divine field. And everything in between, right? Your angels, your Buddhas, whatever you want to say. And I can tell you it is so. C would be, capital C would be the entire galaxy. Now what's interesting about that is there's reason to believe there may be other civilizations that are realized enough to actually be sending us love. But we have this really unique situation with our moon. Very special. One moon, the distances are kind of interesting. The number 108 figures in the math. And this one moon affects our blood, it affects the seas, it affects our moods. It makes life possible. So you have to have a planet, Goldilocks planet, and a moon that changes the waters in a certain way to get the kind of opportunity for life we have. And I think we're going to find that. And that, I think, makes the list of possible life actually quite a bit smaller. Maybe. We're going to learn more. We're just learning more. We're just starting to learn more. It's fantastic. So there may be other civilizations, but what if part of our purpose here is to be a capital A civilization bringing light to the whole galaxy? Maybe that's our purpose. That's our big purpose, right? We're pretty far away from that. There are people who are doing that, I promise. But what if we all were part of that? Totally doable. That may be what we're here to do. And that could happen quickly if everyone got on board. So humans have done their different experiments with civilizational technology. There is actually, I wrote a piece about cultural evolution. There's a model called spiral dynamics, and there's an article on sustainability.org, www.sustainability.org. It's coded in such ancient code that I think it can't even have Bitrot. It's like hand-coded almost. It's very simple. The text is there. Hopefully it's still up. It all went down for some reason a while ago, and I had to restructure the way the internet was pointing to it. The internet is strange these days, but www.sustainability.org, spiral dynamics, Spiral dynamics 1001. And the idea is that there's a succession from hunter-gatherer to tribal to hierarchical structure. That's a king. Now, I mean, if you've got a people and you have a truly enlightened king, actually enlightened king, you're probably going to do all right if he has enough time to like tend to every need. Which is, then all his people that work under him have to be really good. The problem with that is then that king is assassinated or dies or whatever, and then what? And people grab to power. The people who most want the power are the people who shouldn't have the power, generally, because they're greedy, right? And greed is the problem. So power dynamics that abuse people are the problem. And basically, how do we maximize freedom, right? Freedom and responsibility. In Buddhism, skillful means wisdom and compassion. These all fit together, but we have this democratic experiment in this country. This is from red, then you move, so it oscillates from individual draw, collective draw, and a given society is going to be some mix, and there may be even a stack of different things inside each person, actually. And it's children actually grow through these stages. So red is a collective, an individually oriented pattern of structure. And basically fascism would drop into that, but fascism is particularly intense because it's really an ideology where one group of people is suppressing other people or killing them off, whatever. Authoritarianism. And we have that. And I actually think that this idea, populism, let's just call that neo-fascism. Let's call it what it is. Dangerous. There's anarchism, which is basically the idea of freedom for everybody, right? So the Goths are into that. This sort of piracy on the internet is basically anarchism on the internet. And I think a lot of young people are into that. And that sort of works, except we're not going to get global warming solved with anarchism. I don't think. I just don't think people are selfless enough. If everybody was enlightened, we probably could have anarchism, because then everyone would just be giving and collect. They'd only support businesses that were good and doing good things, and people would always tell the truth, right? And a business would say, "Oh yes, we have zero carbon footprint," and it would be true. And people would be, "Okay, that's great. We'll buy your product." That's not this world at all. Somehow it's become normalized to lie, cheat, steal. That has to stop. It doesn't work. Now, if you have a lot of people who want to lie, cheat, steal, kill, you need governance, right? You need structure to keep children safe. TikTok, it's shocking. That's going to come up. If it hasn't already made our local paper, it's shocking. I don't want to see anymore. I totally believe it. I've seen enough of the internet. I've seen what happens on social media. And yeah, it's not just TikTok. It's greed. And actual people who actually want to molest or abuse children. It's real. That's our world right now. So yeah, we have to shut that shit down, right? So blue is nationalism, all the isms. Religious order, but it's about belief in the rule of law, belief in the Bible, right? Which is useful, and it really fit a certain time. It got us out of the Middle Ages, more or less. But we're better than that. people have to think for themselves and know what is good themselves. So then we get meritocracy, and it's called orange, and that's where technology comes from. And that's a big part of business. But that can run amok because it's just greed, the individual pattern. Then we have the hippies coming in, and that's called the green pattern. And basically that's, a lot of people think, oh, don't be so woke. And it's true, if you're so green, so much in that, you can get lost and actually oppress people without realizing it. And that completes what's called the first tier, and then there's the second tier. The second tier, it's like, oh, well, that evolutionary spiral, all of it is valuable. It's all important. It all has its place. And we all actually have all of that in us, and every society has elements of that in it. How do we work with that? And so the entry into second tier, basically the societies, according to the author, there's a book called Spiral Dynamics. And I got to be friends with Don Beck, which was a treat. The societies that actually make it into second tier, into this yellow, which is enlightened enterprise, which is where I think a lot of Silicon Valley tech used to be. And a lot of people there really are there, but something's gone wrong. Or there's like an infection with foreign agents, or I don't know what the fuck is going on. Excuse my French. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to say G, so apologies to the children. So I'm trying to keep this, well, is this PG? I think this is PG. I was thinking G, but truly, this is a G, is it? Yeah, so let's keep it PG. And I don't know, there's children who would be fine with this, I'm sure. Because it's their world, they know it anyway. So this is yellow, and then there's turquoise, which is a collective version. And that's sort of indigenous view, centauric. But basically Scandinavia has this second tier approach where they're integrating the best of capitalism with social ideas. It's not communism, it's social democracy. But the value is that everybody is valuable. Everybody is important. Everybody gets their basic needs met. And yeah, rich people pay taxes because they can. And they're happy to do it because that's a more advanced society. And I've been privileged to get to spend a little time in Scandinavia. I grew up here. And I believe in Hawaii. My dream is that we move more and more in that direction. And I think a lot of people really have their hearts there. And I'm seeing it. Not everybody, but most people. Hawaii is probably the most progressive state in the U.S. for a variety of reasons. And we also have a strong indigenous sentiment here. And we're in enormous beauty, which keeps us humble, just in awe of it. Gratitude for that. So, governance, rule-making. If rules don't make sense, then people won't follow them. Right? People have to agree. So basically you need rules that make sense. And then you actually need to enforce the rules you have, otherwise people will blow them off. So that includes like rules about like common decency, like what you can and can't say if you're an elected representative in front of a live mic. We used to have that a lot more. We need to bring things back into order. We all need to aspire to be like a Buddha or a Jesus or just a good person. We actually all really want that. There are people who've been hurt or damaged or are angry. Those people need love. So rules that actually make sense, that most people agree to, and then enforcement, if they aren't followed, because actual enforcement with appropriate consequences that actually are effective. And people who are willing to go along with it. And that's what we need to make society work. And addressing all, 11, we're going to need to come up with some common agreements. And most of this is global. It's not one nation. It's the whole world. I don't know how, although we do have some mechanisms, right? We do have treaties. We do have existing institutions. There are people who are trying to rip them apart. I don't think that's the right way. I think it's probably more about expanding what we already have. But yeah, maybe we need to create something new. However we get there. It's about freedom and responsibility, right? So we have rules about firearms. Here we're talking now, there's a new conversation about fireworks. Information technology, I think, has gotten away from us. So what is the right balance of freedom and responsibility with the internet and the computers and the technology and the phones and all of that? Because I think, well, it's clear with this TikTok, it's going to come out in a big way. This social media, people are really having to look at that because it's hurting people. It's affecting the consciousness of people. It's hurting children. So, what are the right norms? And the rules, pretty much, if we're going to pull it off and we're really going to have everybody together, then it's going to be the same rules for everybody. And everyone has to agree to it. So it starts with an open heart and loving everything. And the racism, the believing that you have the right to murder other people or hurt them or oppress them. I don't think that fits in the world that we want and that we can have. The counterpoint to all of this is this huge frightening warning in the Bible, this story, this dream that somebody had, the revelations. But let's just talk about principles of governance. So balance of freedom and collective responsibility, right, that we all have. Here in Hawaii, we have this word called Aloha. And it's love, respect, caring. Those are all really important. When it comes to taking care of the natural world, the indigenous knowledge is really important. And an example would be actually for fires. There were these terrible fires in Australia a couple years ago, and what they learned is that the indigenous understanding about fires and fire management was important and had been suppressed and ignored. And I think they're starting to go back, but it was a wake-up that there was this knowledge that was there and it was not being used. So yeah, is your life about God first? Or is it greed and fear? Right? And that's a choice. There's a subtle realm and there's a material realm. And the subtle is real. And to know that, all you have to do is be in love with a person or a thing or it could be a painting but yeah, ideally you love another person or you love many people or all people. And in essence, that polarity, loving all people or believing that you have the right to screw other people, is really the difference between a holy life and an unholy life. And if you neglect the vertical, then you're going to die, and that's going to be the end of everything. Revelations, which I don't totally, it's a book, and this is someone writing a dream, but there are these chapters, and there are the seals, and the seals, the red horse and the taking peace from the earth and making men slay each other. World War II, definitely. And what we're in right now, it's like either the onset of World War III or it's like a sputtering wake up, which is what I think it is. Because I think people are scared right now, which I understand. But I think there's enough love and enough consciousness and enough common sense. And we had World War II. 6 million people were murdered, on top of all the ones who were killed in the wars. The war. And it goes on. The Lamb opened the fourth seal, and its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. And they were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts, which would include, I think, pathogens. If we don't like start pulling all together with our oars in the same direction, that really is like right here. Like that's, and I think LA is just. We'll see where the conversation goes. All right, and the fifth, there was another one, the trumpets. First angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down upon the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, and a third of trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. That kind of looks like a nuclear war, doesn't it? And if we're not careful, I mean, there's some pretty wild and crazy going on. We have to deal with this in the right way. And I think we will. But we're just going to have to come somehow, just burn the light of love so bright, so strong, that all the people decide they're just not going to play these games anymore. So if anybody has like fear, but has this awareness of what is possible, then your job is to live the life of that and just give aloha to everybody you meet. And what would Jesus do? Live that life. And yeah, don't support the greed as best you can. We're in a complicated world, obviously. Everything is all tied together, and we use money. Our money says, in God we trust. That was written there for some reason, some time ago. Chapter 9, the rest of mankind that were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. They did not stop worshipping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood, idols that cannot see or hear or walk. So that's material objects, worshipping the material on the horizontal. Nor did they repent of their murders, their magic arts, which might be things that are done on the internet. This is black magic they're talking about, I think, here. So using technology is advanced enough that you don't understand it, right? It's like magic. That's basically our computer world now. Most people, they really don't know what's inside their computer. So using magic for ill purpose. Their sexual immorality or their thefts. Just look at the real news, so public radio and trustworthy news sources. New York Times, I think, is pretty reliable. But if it's on the internet and you really don't know, you don't know. Just feel the vibe. Then chapter 10, then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven. He was robed in a cloth with a rainbow above his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like fiery pillars. He was holding a little scroll, which lay open in his hand. He planted his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and gave a loud shout like the roar of a lion. I'm reading this for the first time, so. So he ate the scroll, and I guess it's this prophecy. And there was something about people. Oh yeah, the sealed, the 144,000. I saw another angel coming from the east, having the seal of the living God. He called out in a loud voice to the four angels who had given power to harm the land and the sea. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. And then I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. This comes from a long time ago, right? And back then, 144,000 would be an unimaginably large number. We have 8 billion people on Earth, or more. But I think that message is open your heart, be with the divine. Be part of the solution and don't be part of the problem. Easier said than done. But we're going to have to figure it out. And a lot of it is about a higher order of governance that takes care of all people and our world. And that's how we get to our purpose here, the capital A. And then we send our love out into the galaxy, into the universe. And I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. And we absolutely have the means to do it. It's about choices. How do we use the resources we have? How do we share them? How do we take care of each other? Aloha keakua, aloha aina, malama, pono, amen. Hari Om Tat Sat. This is our moment.